Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns. The prime directive for wood turners is not to say what you're making until it's done, but you do have to have a plan. This is a piece of maple, came from my friend's maple tree. It fell down in a storm, so bad news for him. It fell on his roof. Good news for me is I have some nice wood. For this, I think I will make a natural edge bowl and see how it turns out. Now, I won't say the exact shape and won't say the exact form. We'll just have to see what evolves from the bowl, what emerges from the bowl.
And here we go. I did drill a hole in the end. It turned out that I drilled it a little bit off from the middle, so the mounting of this was not quite on center. You'll see it in a minute, how it's one side has a lot more bark, and I tooled it down a lot more to do it. But it's on the screw chuck right now, and by rights I should have gotten out the chainsaw and sawn off a bit of the bottom, but as it's fairly easily turned off with the soft wood, I went ahead and just turned it on the lathe rather than digging out the chainsaw. It did make for a little bit longer of a spigot on it, but with the softer part of green wood, it went quite well. And there you see the off-centeredness of this. Made me think afterwards that perhaps I should have left it on there and had more of an open-sided bowl, if you will, with this one. But that's what we learned. They just marked the pith line because I don't want to leave the pith in the bowl due to the difference in shrinking. And so marking off where the pith was, starting to form the tenon at this point, and trim up the outside a little bit more and refine the tenon. Get rid of the nubbin at the end. I do want to leave a flat for the jaws to rest against and seat firmly on, so that there, but I do want to refine some of the outside a little bit more, as if I do it later I risk running my tool into the metal of the jaw chucks, which is never good for the tool. Then flip it over into my chuck. Refine the outside just a little bit more. Want to make sure this is a very light, fine cut, especially as it crosses the bark line. If you go too heavily at a time, the bark line frays and leaves a jagged edge. I really don't want that on this one. Wood is nice and soft, so it's fairly easy going. A little bit challenging with the natural edge because there's not an even edge to find the bevel and ride it on. Be very careful not to get a catch. But this one worked out pretty well. Refine it a little bit more. Go for and deepen the bowl just a little bit more. Still just have to watch out for that natural edge. One, that I don't scrape the bark off and chip the bark off, and two, that I have appropriate spot for the chisel to ride on. So I just had to do smooth out the bottom a little bit more with a bowl scraper, and it's almost done. The wood is so wet though that I chose not to finish sanding it at this point. Just at that point it tends to load up the sandpaper quite a bit. So I did put it in a paper bag. I did not wax it, but left it in a paper bag and weighed it periodically. Wound up being a total of 19 days in the paper bag, and it lost 30% of its weight. So I figure that's pretty dry. It also had a difference in the shrinkage by about 1/4 inch across the diameter, and that made me worry about whether I'd left the walls thick enough for this. So then it's now with the wood harder, and have to true it up a little bit more. It's a little bit tougher going. Have to be careful to do it. I did run the CA glue along the bark line, stabilize it, make sure it'll stick and be stable on the wood. The inside on this one was especially difficult now to refine, as it's off center, and with the thinness, I did lose a little bit of the natural bark edge. Looked around for it on the in amongst the shavings, could not find it, so had to leave it. Could not glue it back on. And then just another little chip. Now with the sanding, it's very dry and dry enough that it did not load up the sandpaper, and sanded it out. Used walnut oil to finish it, although this is mainly the inside and the upper outside at this point. Then flip it over. Used a jam chuck. It just turned a piece of scrap wood. Used a recess and used a longer set of narrow jaws to hold it because it did need it. Used a little bit of sanding pad to cushion so that it didn't scrape the inside or mar the inside against the jam chuck. Refine the outside of the base. Get the level of the bevel. Did a little bit too much there. The little spigot broke off, but in the end it stayed put, didn't fly off, and was able to finish the bowl. Oiled it, and I think it's a nice little bowl, and turned out very nice. I like it. It's a keeper.